making myself a tea. Hello, welcome. You're not here live at this moment because I forgot to post the link to this particular live stream in advance. So I'm here on my own, and if someone joined me, well, hello. And if you're watching later, hello, person of the future. This is an angst-ridden episode of Think Like a Journalist, and it happens to relate somewhat to local newspapers and investigative reporters working together all around the world to combat spyware, and footballers' wives. There you go. There's a kind of a teasy sort of thing. When journalists put something up on a newspaper or magazine, there's the headline, which I'm talking about print, obviously, which the headline doesn't get written by the journalist normally. And then there's the stand first, or the subtitle, or whatever you want to call it. We used to call it stand first. Maybe it's changed. And that's the line under the headline. So you get two shots at trying to lure the reader to read that thing. And so what have I done with this? I've called it an angst-ridden, an episode full of angst or something. And it's about those things. And now, a little bit of what's going on here. I seem to have 2 times my name at the top. That's unnecessary. I don't need to do that. See if I can just change this. I don't need... Whoa. Hang on. No, that doesn't change that. Don't need this. There. That's good. Worked that out. I'm using a thing called Ecamm Live, which is it works on a Mac, may work on other things, and I was recommended to use it because you can do all sorts of clever things, which I'm mostly not doing, but anyway. So here we are. I'm going to record this. I am recording this, and I'm going to save it as an episode in a podcast for the Substack, which I have called Think Like a Journalist, appropriately enough. And I haven't posted much on there for a while because I've been a bit overwhelmed with too many things from other people's Substacks and started thinking I don't want to contribute to all of this noise. So I slowed down a bit. And in a way, I suppose that's my eternal theme is how do I know, how do I personally, John Paul Flintoff, ever know when to send anything out and why should I bother? And that's where this angsty episode comes in. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm trying to just put a bit more context here. I'm getting a little bit more on top of this new delightfully punishing routine that I've set myself of doing a live stream at 4:30 p.m. UK time on Mondays, Wednesdays and Thursdays. And the ones on Wednesdays are these ones about thinking like a journalist. And it's an attempt to force myself to get on with something which may well become a book proposal and then may become a book. And it's an element of thinking like a journalist. It's not like the whole thing, but it's a part of it. And I knew that if I actually set up these live streams and actually stuck to them, I might actually generate some material. So there we go. Mostly I've done that. Last Wednesday, forgive me, something came up just at the very last minute, so I didn't do Think Like a Journalist, and I also didn't do the one on Friday, which is about a related thing to do with writing, but it's not journalism exactly. So, now that I'm getting into the swing of this and doing it to a rhythm, I actually spent this morning thinking about what am I going to tell you here? What am I curious about? What bothers me? What's interesting to me? What's happening? And this sort of bubbled up very naturally because last night, various things came up and I've written them down. So I'm going to read the thing that came up last night. And which I then wrote about this morning. And I'll just read it out loud so that I could use the audio maybe for the podcast for my Substack, Think Like a Journalist. Anyway, here we go. This is my Angst-Ridden piece called Local News, Spy Tech and Footballers' Wives. I spent yesterday evening at home alone, apart from a dog requiring endless tummy tickles, confronted at every turn by thoughts of journalism. Like this. I had a call with a friend who used to write interviews with a picture byline showing her face in a major newspaper every week, but doesn't anymore. And I was reminded of her when I switched on the telly and watched a TV drama involving a local newspaper reporter in his late 40s who lost his job because the paper, struggling financially, was going online only. I avoided the evening news because it's too depressing at the moment. I know. And watched instead a 90-minute documentary about investigative reporters around the world collaborating on a story about spy tech misused by dictators and other baddies. It wasn't cheerful exactly, but it wasn't depressing. I drew a picture later using a video on YouTube of one of the journalists. Khadija she's been hacked by her own phone. The evening concluded with a programme in which talking heads from newspapers and elsewhere smirked mostly, but occasionally dabbed tears from their eyes as they shared opinions on a recent libel case, Vardy versus Rooney. I went to bed feeling a familiar taste of contempt for journalism mixed with admiration, idealism with cynicism, hurt with hope. What is this thing, journalism? And if I think it's important, which I do, then how can I write about it without getting so demoralised by how awful so much of it is? Why do I even care? I don't even read local newspapers for months on end, or interviews by people with picture bylines. I'm not that interested. Do other people get so tied up in knots? One way forward would be to identify a reassuring, plausible certainty that A, this kind of journalism is good with a capital G, and B, that kind of journalism is bad. But I can't say it's good to investigate spyware misused by dictators and it's bad to gossip about footballers' wives, because it's not as simple as that. There are important stories to be told about libel cases, such as Vardy versus Rooney, and I dare say many other aspects of the lives of the women who happen to be married footballers. On the flip side, there are also some dreadfully self-important investigative journalists who get carried away with the supreme consequence of whatever they happen to be working on just because they happen to be working on it. Good for them, I suppose, as long as they remain capable of thinking that way. But looking back on my own experience and conversations with people in all kinds of employment, I suspect that any job can eventually turn into hack work. To explain what I mean, let's look away from journalism for a second. In activism, hack work might begin when you launch a new campaign just because the last one reached a natural conclusion. After all, you have to do something with all the charitable donations flooding in, right? Or in law, a barrister might finish one case and, without suddenly being overcome with a passion for justice, instruct the clerk to take on another. With luck, the new campaign or new legal brief will soon feel important. If not, oh well, there'll be another one soon. And obviously the same kind of thing applies to journalists. My friend who used to write interviews with a picture byline probably thought that each interview was sensational, much as I did when I was a full-time writer on newspapers and magazines until the following week. Only with hindsight do the highs and lows of a career make themselves visible. Ah, yes, you might say to yourself, that was a good one, and skip past the others. Question: how to avoid doing hack work? Answer: get out while you can, before it's too late. A thing I noticed in that spyware documentary last night: nearly all the journalists who appeared on camera were youngish. Nothing wrong with that, but just think how many grey-haired editors sit around long desks in All the President's Men. Do today's grey-haired editors not like to be on camera? Or are there none? Did they all get out while they could? I bring up this issue of age because it's almost too boringly obvious to mention it, but I'm going to mention it anyway. News media have, for years, chosen to save money by replacing experienced staff with younger people. I don't blame them, but there is a cost. When I worked for the Sunday Times, there was a white-haired editor called Bob, who was generally agreed to remember everything important that had ever happened anywhere, both out there in the real world and internally in the newspaper. Lose Bob, and you lose so much. Or do you? I go round in circles on this and it makes me dizzy. Do I even like journalism? Is it important? Really? Or is it just gossip? Is gossip so bad? Some anthropologists argue that we couldn't have made it as a species if we hadn't gossiped about each other all day, every day for hundreds of thousands of years. I paraphrase. So why do I take it all so seriously? I don't know. Lighten up. When I get like this, I start to hate words, really hate them. Because I know I could write about this topic or something else from any number of different points of view, and I could make a decent case for any of them. I'm a technically accomplished writer, I know that. Working as a journalist gave me that facility. Does it give me pleasure that I know how to use and misuse words? No. Not right now, anyway. Ask me again tomorrow. Right now, I just want to draw pictures. I'll make drumming noises on my desk or anything else that doesn't involve having an opinion on anything. Nothing matters. And when I was writing it, I paused at this point and went to get myself a cup of coffee. And I came back and started typing again. The problem isn't journalism, it's me. Journalism can be good and bad. Good journalism makes bad journalism look worse, and bad journalism makes even modestly good journalism appear stunning. Good and bad, like light and dark, rich and poor, north and south, are relative. No matter how close together you drag them, you can't have one without the other. And when I say the problem is me, I don't mean to give myself a particularly hard time. I'm not that bad. Like many people, I have impossibly high standards. Standards I don't even meet myself. Writing down all this angst-ridden to and fro has been helpful. I've come to see something deeper. Journalism isn't... Whoops, how did I say that wrong? Journalism isn't just good or bad. It can also be fun or not fun. I think the angst on this page is just a reflection of my struggle to see the point of writing anything when I don't have an editor demanding it from me every week. I had an editor like that for just 2 years on the Financial Times magazine. He was such a pleasure to work for. He came up with ideas for me and trusted my ideas too. He was intelligent and funny. And as it happens, I was reminded of him in the conversation when I spoke to my friend last night, the one with the picture byline in the national newspaper. Yeah, that is probably the reason for all this angst. After 20 years, I still miss working with Michael. Ah well. Some things matter. A bit. For a while. And that's all for now. So there we are. I wondered how it would be this week. For the first time I've done one of these live streams to write something in advance and work with it that way, instead of, for example, doing something else or being completely spontaneous. I know I blithered a bit at the beginning, but here we are. It's only just 16 minutes, and I read that thing, and make of it what you will. It helps me to even have this, and I'm grateful every time I get one of the little notifications saying that someone has signed up to my Substack. And I shall file this, as we used to say as journalists. I will upload, send, deliver, publish this recording along with the words very shortly. Thank you. Bye.